2019 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. It is the last meeting of 2019. As you can tell, it's been a long year. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order, and I will ask you all to stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a couple of presentations and recognitions to do tonight. The first is a recognition of our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and specifically some members of that committee who did some work, some cleanup around Stillwater, specifically on the Kamioka Trail under the Perkins Road overpass. Norman, I think you have some pictures for that. Oh, do we have? No, that's different. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Here you go. This is the Kamioka Trail as it passes under Hall of Fame. And
not under Hall of Fame, under Perkins.
Perkins. And as you can see there, the concrete looks a little dirty. Well, it's my understanding that was dirty to the point of 2 or 3 inches of accumulated mud. And BPAC realized that and went and cleaned it up. And we are very appreciative of that and others who do similar kinds of things to help us. We can't be everywhere. We wish we could. Sometimes we don't know about these things, but that's now on our list to check after a heavy rain.
Yeah, there was another section, I think, just past the underpass where the grass and everything had kind of grown up over the edges of it, and instead of being 6 feet wide or whatever it's supposed to be, it was only about 2 feet wide. And some members of that committee and some other folks here in the community went out and cut that back, trimmed the edges, and got that sidewalk back where it was fully accessible. So services like that by our community members are so appreciated. Like Norman said, we don't necessarily keep up or our crews don't see all those things all the time. And so when you do see those things and when people step up and pick up litter or trim up a sidewalk or keep a pathway clear, it is very much appreciated. So we're very thankful to those folks who clean that area up, and we look forward to working with them to keep it that way.
Can I mention that Mr. Scott Nutt is the person who brought this to our attention, actually, and we really do appreciate citizens volunteering to do things.
Absolutely.
It really is a sign of a good community that you can't pay for.
No, you can't.
And that's actually in addition to all of Mr. Nutt's work on the trails out at McMurtry as well. So that's just in addition to everything else that Scott does.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely. Come on up.
That's not the Perkins Road underpass.
Oh, that's not?
No, because there's no retaining wall on that one. What it is the creek backs up and the silt just sits there. So we went in and cleaned it out. I took some notes of the people that helped me. Bobby Wintle, John Hickey, Vicki Ahlers, and Carl Driscoll. We went out on 3 different days, and it took 12 man-hours to dig out all that overgrown stuff.
Oh, wow.
And someone has since put a channel in there, so now when it floods, the water drains right down into the creek. So
Good.
evidently the volunteerism is contagious. But those underpasses are huge for pedestrians and cyclists because Perkins Road is a real trial to try and ride a bike across.
Mm-hmm.
This way we can just zip right through it. It's very convenient and lots.
Well, we appreciate that. I appreciate the additional names and recognition for folks who did that work, and we appreciate everything you've done for us, Mr. Nutt. Thank you. I think we also have a recognition of Lisa Eccles, the Stillwater Medical Center Volunteer Coordinator.
This is Sarah Wheatley, and we both belong to Cimarron Valley Quilt Guild, and we have a little presentation tonight.
Excellent.
Okay. Mayor Joyce, council members, thank you for inviting us here this evening. As Lisa said, we are part of the Cimarron Quilters Guild, but I represent the Cimarron Quilters of the Quilts of Valor. Oh, I'm sorry. You would think I would need a magnaphone, but that's all right. Quilts of Valor is a national volunteer group of quilters whose mission it is to honor our veterans and active duty service members. In 2013, Blue Star mom, Catherine Roberts, had a dream about her son when he was deployed to Iraq. And her dream was of a young man who was overwhelmed with his experiences during his time in service. And then she saw him wrapped in a quilt, and his demeanor changed to one of despair to hope. And the quilt of valor had made the difference. And from this dream, the mission of Quilts of Valor Foundation began, and since then, in 16 years, 240,077 quilts have been awarded in Iraq, Afghanistan, the United States, and in Germany. And our group, since we've been started in 2014, we have done 218 quilts.
Wow.
In our 4 years of being here. A veteran, whether active duty, retired, National Guard, or reserve, is someone at one point in their life who raised their hand and swore allegiance to the United States of America. And that included signing a blank check made payable to the same for the amount up to and including their life. And there are many veterans today that you would ask them that no one has relieved them of that duty. Today we're here to honor one of our own. He's born, raised in school in Stillwater. He's a graduate of Stillwater High School in 1998. He entered the Army and served a 3-year term as a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg. He was honorably discharged, and he came back home. He graduated from OSU with his bachelor's degree in microbiology and molecular genetics. He continued his education at the OU Medical School and specialized in neurology and became the chief resident during his final year. And he came back home. He continues to serve his country, his community, and the medical profession here in Stillwater. Dr. John Wedlake, would you please come down? What we like to do is we like to wrap them in it, and that is our way of welcoming them home. And then usually I say, this was made with loving hands and grateful hearts, and we appreciate your service and welcome home. And may I give you a hug?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Now, hang on. And then I have a certificate we read. John Wedlake, on behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, in recognition of your service and sacrifice for this nation, it is a privilege to serve, honor, and comfort you through the awarding of this Quilt of Valor. And though we may never know the depth of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, as a gesture of gratitude from a grateful nation, we award you this Quilt of Valor.
Well, that was fantastic. I guess that was a surprise to everyone up here. I didn't know that was happening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Can I keep this with me during the entire
You know, you can, yeah.
It will comfort me.
I would expect you to be wrapped in it the whole meeting. Thank you for your service, Dr. Wedlake.
Sir, thank you.
I'm not sure the rest of the meeting will be quite as moving, but we'll try. We'll see what we can do. That's great. All right, well, that takes us to item 4 on the consent docket. The consent docket tonight includes approval of our regular meeting minutes. It includes approval and expenditures on the Perkins Road project to purchase more of the right-of-way that we need to get that project underway. It includes approval of a plat for the East Ridge second section and a temporary construction easement for the wastewater treatment plant, as well as acceptance of an electric easement on Richmond Road. Councilors, any questions or comments or motions on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. That takes us to item 5, which is public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. We do have one person signed up tonight on this item. This is Mabry Baldwin. and I think she is here to speak about one of the appointments listed under Section 13. Hello, Mabry. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am Mabry Baldwin. I go to school at Stillwater Junior High, and I live at 4 Yellow Brick Drive. Why I'm here is because I have learned recently that I think we may be stopping recycling, and I am very concerned about that because the environment is one of my passions, and I care greatly about it because I want my future to be green and be able to go different places and see many things without trash and waste and lots of different things that have been happening. Why I believe recycling is good for our community and the world is because we can be an example for a progressive society for other cities, and we can reduce our waste. I am hopefully going to be starting a club at the junior high to start a recycling program and promote earth-friendly things. I know I have a lot to learn about how everything works and why it's going to be hard to get better and back on its feet, but I also wanted my voice to be heard, so that is why I'm here. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate that, Mabry. You had reached out to see if you could be a part of our task force, recycling task force that we set up a couple meetings back, and that sounded like a good idea to some of the counselors up here. And so we do actually have an item at 13C on appointments. I'm going to go ahead and jump down to do that real quick, if that's okay with everybody up here, because we did receive a application from you to be appointed to that committee, and I would like to make that motion now to appoint Mabry Baldwin to the recycling task force.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to make this appointment. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, you're now appointed to our recycling task force.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment. We've got lots of awesome community volunteering happening tonight, or at least we're talking about it, so that is good. Down to item 7, public hearings. Item A, receive public comment regarding a request from Vapor Supplies Unlimited, LLC, for a specific use permit to establish a medical marijuana dispensary at 704 North Main Street in the Commercial General District. This is CC-19-202. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Lance Gross.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. The one and only application that we have before you tonight is for a specific use permit. It's located on North Main, and it's for a medical marijuana dispensary. The subject site is highlighted in green, and we actually have a new audio-visual tool. It's eye-friendly and non-lethal. It's a laser pointer. So. And just to kind of give you a little orientation, the West McElroy is up here, North Main is over here, and to give you a couple of ideas as to what's surrounding here, some of the landmarks, IHOP is over here, and the New China is over here. So the dispensary is basically located across the street from the New China. This is another view looking to the west. You can see that the location of the subject site is located on the southern end of the strip center. The convenience store is up here, and I believe the Jimmy John's is over here. And this is a street view looking straight to the west. As you can see, again, it's the southernmost unit. I'd like to now call Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, who can come up and explain the rest of the application.
Thank you, Lance.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing the owner tonight. This is an existing business, Vapor Supplies, and with this approval tonight, he would be able to expand his existing business. He's also here tonight. If you have any questions for him, you can ask him up later if you want.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Kelly, Council? Thank you,
Thank you.
Kelly. At this point, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. We do have, I'm not sure if this is the owner that signed up to speak. Is it Ricky Buzis? Yes. B-U-Z-I-S? If you have anything you'd like to say, we'd love to hear from you. If not, we can ask you questions, although I'm not sure we have many.
I'm just looking forward to serving the community and helping some folks get some jobs.
Excellent. Thank you. Questions, councilors? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will ask Lance to come tell us what the Planning Commission recommends on this item.
Yes, the Planning Commission made a recommendation by a vote of 3-0 to approve the application.
Thank you, Lance. Councilors, questions, comments, or motions on this item?
No.
Motion to approve the specific use permit for 704 North Main Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this specific use permit. Please vote. With a vote of 3-2, that motion passes with Councilor Wedlake and Vice Mayor Darlington voting no. All right, that takes us down to item 8, general orders. First up, item A. After much ado and some scheduling snafus, I'm happy to welcome Carolyn Wallstad here to give us an update and annual report for Stillwater Area Sports Association.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'm going to get my presentation up here just a moment. There it is. Thank you again for this opportunity to come and represent and perhaps update you on a few of SASA's involvement and activities. My name is Carolyn Wallstad. I am the Executive Director of SASA. And SASA, I need to be closer. Oh, I can't believe you have to hear me. Yeah.
So people on TV.
I know. This is, as you all are well familiar with, this is what we were dealing with in the spring. It's crazy, but this is what it looked like this fall when we were playing games. So it's amazing the struggles that the city and SASA went through regarding the flood. However, we're back swinging bats and softballs and playing soccer and basketball. This is just kind of, since SASA was established in 2015, this is our income. This is with the city's allocations are in the blue, and then the orange is the funding that we have raised through registrations. These are some of our structures and capital improvements that we have done. Shade structures at Strickland. So if you haven't been to Strickland under the shade structures, we have new batting cages at Strickland. We have a new armory lights that have been updated. They are LED lights. And we have a new storage building at Wittenberg. This is through our 5 years, some of our higher capital investments. So over $400 and almost $50,000 have been allocated back into the fields, the department, the gym, shade structures, home plates. We replace them yearly. So I just want you to know that your funds are going to good use. We also offer sponsorships, courtesies. SASA, for 2019, we had 108. Those were allocated by if a student is on the free or reduced from the schools, they receive 50% courtesy for any registration, and that's for all sports that we offer. This is our league report, so it just kind of gives you an idea of the seasons. SASA does have something going on all year. We have spring, summer, and fall, and then winter basketball. So we're constantly have opportunities for our youth. And I do want to jump on the bandwagon of community service, and I have volunteer coaches. We have 66 youth basketball teams this year. Last year we had 53. So that's volunteer coaches. So as you talk about the people and citizens of Stillwater, we have a lot of really qualified and good people that step up to help with the city and the youth. This is league participation per year, and as you can see, we are on the incline on everything except, and I will point it out, is adult softball. And that is a trend across the United States that the adults are not playing softball as much. injuries. The young ones aren't coming out and playing. But that is the only sport that we are in the decline. Most of them we've almost doubled, and we've added tennis and flag football for the city.
You know, if you would have asked me coming into this, I would never have guessed that adult softball was by far your biggest sport historically.
Yeah, it's
that.
the decline. It's three, when it began, when SASA took it over, it's a 3 season, and we used to have 30 to 35 teams that would play all year long, and we're down to probably about 20 teams now. We're open to any opportunities to increase that. I do have a board members. Blaine Stevens is over adult softball, and he's very actively trying to get the teams back, coming back to Stillwater and playing. But out of all of our sports, that is the only one that's in the decline. If you can look for basketball when we began, or our youth baseball when we began was 348, and this year we had 817 participants. So we've almost doubled. So this is when SASA took over for Park and Rec and was hired to manage the youth and adults sports. In 2013, those were the numbers, and this is our current numbers in 2019. So from 2013, for example, youth baseball was 439, and we are at 817 now. For our youth basketball program, they had 182 at the city, and we are currently at 594.
I'm happy to see that you have instituted flag football.
Yes, we have taken over flag football. This is our 2 years. We've had it 2 years. The first year we had 11 teams. This year we had 18 teams. We play the games out at Wittenberg, and it's been well. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pat. Tournament-wise, one of our goals of SASA is to bring tournaments to Stillwater, so we bring youth and adult tournaments to Stillwater. We had phenomenal numbers. We are back U-Trip sanctioned, which makes a big difference to the baseball world. And unfortunately, we had the Joes that was canceled due to the flood. We had 63 teams currently scheduled for that one. We had to cancel that one. And then October 25th and 26th, I think, is the only winter weather that we've had this fall, but there was not, that particular weekend, there was not a single tournament being played in the state of Oklahoma. That's when they thought the big ice and cold came through. So we actually had to cancel 2 tournaments due to weather. Otherwise, our numbers would be extremely higher for this. This is our tournaments. This is our youth baseball tournaments only. The orange is the total participants, and the blue are the total teams. The 2 years that you can see the decline is when we broke away from Edmond and we were denied U-Trip sanctioning. However, we have gotten the U-Trip sanctioning back, and that's why our numbers are back up. Teams like to pay the U-Trip.
Is that why the revenue was down in 17 as well?
Absolutely, yes. So this is Babcock, this is Holiday, this is Babcock, and it's a marvelous field, and we're so happy to have it back after the flood. Through our tournaments, this is the economic impact that our tournaments estimate. So from just the 179, and again, we had 63 that were canceled because of the flood, so this number would have been much higher. And then that's the estimated sales tax that was spent in the city. So your funding is coming right back to us in the city of Stillwater. And those numbers were given, that ratio is given to me what Visit Stillwater uses for their proposed. And this is kind of a new slide, and I'd kind of like to help you consider this. This is our actual activities that we plan per event. So for our youth basketball, we have 66 teams. That's 264 games that we plan, manage. And then on top of that, each team has 1 to 2 practices a week. So the youth basketball, if you'll look at the yellow, is 21,000. That is 21,000 events that we are organizing per team, per player, per week for the total for youth basketball. So each team has 2 practices a week, a game a week, and most teams have 9 players on it. So we're impacting a lot of different families with all our activities. And it is a family affair. This is our adult games and practices. For those that play the adult sports, it is a family affair. For youth adult softball, when we go to the parks, there's families out there. Volleyball, and we have those. So that is the activities for practices and games for our adult league. We have partnered with Oklahoma State in many, many different areas. One is the Oklahoma State Cowgirls. For our youth basketball, they have the opportunity of going and being highlighted for the pregame and also at halftime. So if you go to the Cowgirl game tomorrow night, you're going to see SASA teams before the game scrimmaging and then at halftime scrimmaging. So it's an opportunity for them to be exposed, to be in Gallagher-Iba on the court. We do that with men's and women's Cowgirls games over the holidays. OSU Cowgirl softball clinics are held out at the adult softball fields out at airport. This year, first year that we took over tennis, and I hired several tennis players as our coaches, which worked out well. The Cowboy Classic is baseball. We partner with OSU Baseball, and our 2 first tournaments are called Cowboy Classic. And if the teams can get discounted tickets to go to the OSU baseball games. And then we have the OSU Cowgirls came and did clinics at Babcock for our youth, and the whole entire team was out there and coached and did some personal instruction on 4 different nights on Thursday evenings, and it was really nice to have them in the park. One thing that SASA started that was led by several of my board members and myself is called Youth Activities of Stillwater. And when I first started, I would get several phone calls about how do I sign up for soccer? How do I do dance? So this is a non-exclusive, all-inclusive website. We host soccer, YMCA, Lake McMurtry, Stillwater Arts, the library, auditorium. So it's kind of a one-stop stop for a website that parents can go on, find out information, have a direct link. So if they're wanting to sign up for something at Stillwater Arts, the information's right there with all the registration and deadlines. There's just some fun activity pictures. Joey Graham has started with our youth basketball program. He's the lower left. He started a 6 and under academy, teaching the fundamentals to our young youth. And here's our SASA plans and hopes for 2020. We'd like to add shade structure. We need a batting cage at Wittenberg. We'd like some picnic tables to keep people in the parks. We do have a spring pickleball scheduled tournament. Pickleball is a big thing in the Armory. If you haven't been around, you can come and participate. We are enclosing the bathroom stalls at Babcock. Currently, they've been a curtain, and so now we are enclosing that. We have field improvements. We do have 5 U-Trip tournaments scheduled and 2 softball tournaments, 1 adult softball tournament in June. And Joey Graham and I are meeting this week to solidify 3 basketball tournaments for the city of Stillwater and SASA. I have an amazing board. Several are here tonight. Kevin, Matt, and Jake are here. Any questions?
About how many adults play pickleball?
There's usually 24 to 30 in the Armory on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They come and set up. We've taped it out, so there's 3 different courts that they can use, and there's some heated games.
I've heard.
Yes.
And counselors, other questions for Carolyn?
My daughter has played softball and is now playing basketball, and we've really appreciated the different camps and the opportunities to interact with some of the collegiate athletes. That's been a really special thing for Stella. So we appreciate that outreach that you've done to bring their expertise and just the excitement of our little ones, seeing these college athletes. I think that's really special.
Thank you. Thanks for supporting SASA and being a part. Coach Wedlake, we haven't had your team back in a while.
That's because we got killed the season that we played a few years ago. Well, I think I'll just add to this. I think it's very clear how important it is to get kids active at an early age. In fact, it would be an interesting statistic to see if we could overlay what the youth sports landscape looked like 25 to 40 years ago, and compare that to when the adult softball started falling off.
Trending down.
I almost guarantee you would see a correlation.
I would agree.
Because these are habits that are formed young, and getting kids active at a young age is a good way to ensure overall good health comes later in life. So anyway, it would be interesting to see that overlay of charts. So you're doing good work, important work.
Thank you.
And I, for one, would like to see it continue as long as humanly possible.
Thank you. One thing I did want to add is when SASA was started, we went to area because we wanted people to come to Stillwater instead of Stillwater teams going to Edmond, Oklahoma City, and those areas. And for our youth basketball, we have 3 Cushing teams, we have 3 Perkins teams, we have 2 Perry teams, I have a Morrison team, and I also have 1 Pawnee team. So between, we are definitely in the area.
Carolyn, I'm glad that you led with the flood picture, because I know
FEMA.
for all of us that was for you all especially. I mean, that was not only a lot of extra time and expense to get the fields back in shape, but it also cut your revenue from not having some of those tournaments. So I appreciate the fact that you guys have put in so much extra time and effort to help recover from that event. My question for you would be, what else it is we can do as a city to help support what you all are trying to do at SASA, because as everyone said, and I think we're really happy with the results that you all are getting and the activity and the involvement that we're seeing. What do you guys need more of? Do you still need more fields? Do you still need more?
Absolutely, we'd always take more fields. It has helped with the schools. With many hats that I wear in Stillwater, one of them is I'm active in Stillwater Public Schools, and so I've been able to get gym usage from the elementary schools, which has been really nice. Otherwise, there's no way that we could handle 66 youth basketball teams. We're at Highland Park, both gyms, the junior high Sanger and SASA gym, 4 nights a week. So I appreciate your support financially, really appreciate the support with the facilities. Barb Bliss and I have a great relationship. When there's an issue with the lights or the irrigation system, she's a one call, and I very much appreciate the facilities maintenance. So thank you so much.
Excellent.
So if one were to sign up their office team for softball, they can do this at the Youth Activities of Stillwater site?
Yes.
Okay.
Our next team sign up would be volleyball, and you would have a lot of fun.
You see Dr. Wedlake in here on crutches and a
concussion.
Thank you, Caroline, for being here, and thanks to your board members for being here as well. We appreciate all the work you do for Stillwater.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have a number of items here under 8, so we're going to jump down to item B, approved budget amendment reflecting November 2019 donations to the Stillwater Public Library. Melissa Reams.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Melissa Reams, Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here this evening for representing the library. The first of 3 budget amendments deals with the month of November donations that were received. The library received $150 from Stillwater Rotary, Frontier Rotary, designated for the purchase of children's books, and 2 donations that are for the purpose of books in the memory of a family member. And then there was $100 that was an undesignated donation. So we're asking you to approve this evening this routine budget amendment that will allow those dollars to be spent accordingly.
Thank you, Melissa. Councilors?
Motion to approve budget amendment reflecting the $3,000 grant award.
No.
One.
50.
Nope.
250.
250, excuse me.
Above.
I'm jumping ahead.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment for the donations to Stillwater Public Library. Please vote. Vote of 5-0, that's approved. Item C, approve the budget amendment reflecting a receipt of a $3,000 Oklahoma
I'm just so excited.
Historical Records Advisory
Well,
Board
this one, it kind of is exciting.
approving access to the elections grant.
Yes. So Stacy Delano, the library director, applied for a grant from the Oklahoma Historical Records Advisory Board. And I want to say Stacy had talked to the council
here,
about
right?
this before. So you kind of refreshing your memory. Well, they were awarded $3,000 of the grant. And based on the way this report was written, and I did call and confirm at the library, I believe there is no match on this grant. So they're getting $3,000. What they're going to do with the money is purchase a new desktop computer and some new software called Past Perfect. And Past Perfect will replace the current Google Docs piece of software that they're using to archive the special collections within the library. So they're going to set that up, and then as they scan these documents and archive them, they have gotten permission from the Oklahoma Department of Libraries. They're going to download the scans to the Department of Libraries server so that those records can be accessed by anybody that have access to the Department of Libraries website.
Awesome.
So we're here this evening to ask you to approve this budget amendment for $3,000 to facilitate the archive of this special collections.
Thank you, Melissa. Dr. Wedlake, do you have a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve the budget amendment reflecting the $3,000 grant award.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that's approved. Item D, approve a budget amendment reflecting the receipt of federal and state funds from E-Rate and Oklahoma Universal Service Fund for internet service at the Stillwater Public Library, and transfer of budgeted funds of $14,400 for internet service to the Repair Structures Expenditures account.
So every year, the Oklahoma Universal Service Fund determines whether they can provide internet service to libraries. When we prepared our budget last year, we did not have that award given yet. And so we provided for internet service within the library's budget, $14,400. Since we have received the award of the grant for that same amount of money, that now frees up $14,400 within the library's budget. We would like to ask you to reallot that money to the building infrastructure account. And the items that the library has planned for that money is the replacement. They have 4 heat pumps. We replaced 3 of those last year, and that 4th one needs to be replaced. So that money will go a long way to helping with that. There are some bathroom repairs that need to be made over at the library. And then finally, they're looking to upgrade the fire safety system. The upgrade provides for secure access for the employees to that north building, because I think that's what used to be the old high school, isn't it? And that building, we have employees in that building, but we don't necessarily always have people coming in for meetings and that kind of thing. So I think they feel a little at risk, if you will. This new system will allow us to close the doors and give them that somewhat secure feeling. And then if there is a case of fire, it will still allow them to break out and have egress to get out of the building. And so that's kind of the plans for the $14,400.
Thank you,
and we
Melissa.
are asking you to approve that budget amendment.
Councilors?
Motion to approve the budget amendment to redeploy the amount budgeted for internet service to the library building infrastructure account.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to redeploy those funds. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item's approved.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melissa. Item E, approve the LBR contract amendment number 10 for engineering services related to the South Apron construction project and for acquisition of a primary ARFF apparatus at Stillwater Regional Airport. Mr. Paul Briegel.
Good evening. Paul Priegel, Airport Director. And the council recalls back on the 18th of November, presented a resolution to you all for the south portion of our apron, as well as the acquisition of a new aircraft rescue firefighting vehicle. And that resolution was passed, and now we are on to the next phase of this process, which is the engineering and design portion. And as part of that, the airport has a multi-year agreement with LBR Incorporated. That agreement was penned in June of 2016 and identified several projects, the apron being one of them. And so as customary, as we get to these projects, an amendment is drafted to that original agreement, and I bring that to you this evening. I want to, just for everyone's recollection, it's going to bring up this graphic that just shows what phase we're talking about, which is phase 2. It's the red, and that's the far south portion. For your point of reference, this, where my arrow is where the terminal is, and this is the far south. For those of you that are familiar, this is the big American Airlines MD-80 aircraft. So we're on the south end of the apron, and LBR's amendments will provide not only the design, which is the next process, they'll also be doing the bidding services and the application and other grant administration through the life of the project, which is quite extensive. And so the total amendment value is $516,240. That is part of the planned project cost and reimbursable by the FAA 90% with a 10% match from the city. This went before Airport Authority on November 21st and was approved pending receipt of the independent engineering fee analysis. And we have since received that from our city engineer, Monty Carnes, who has reviewed and confirmed that the fees proposed are in line with industry standards. So at this time, we would ask that you recommend, or I'm sorry, we recommend that you approve this amendment. I stand for questions.
Councilors, any questions?
Motion to approve amendment number 10 to the contract with LBR Inc. for services at Stillwater Regional Airport.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that motion's approved.
And if I may, really quick, I just wanted to follow up. This week, we have our de-ice equipment on board, and we also have our indoor baggage complete, not fully completed, finished, but it is working. And so if you all have a chance, stop by, but I know you all have been gracious to provide us guidance and funds on that, and we've already gotten a lot of wonderful reviews just in the last couple of days. It's been so cold. So thank you all very much.
Sure, people are happy to have indoor baggage claims.
Yeah. Paul, I fly out in January, so I'm looking forward to that indoor.
Can I? That budget amendment includes the firefighting apparatus.
Yes.
In that, the engineering.
The grant. They're helping us with the grant application portion of that and the bidding.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what it was. That's what they're helping us with the bidding for.
Yes, it's all in the same grant, and we were actually going to prepare to do that ourselves. It was a really quite extensive process because there's different reports and stuff and research you have to do, and they volunteered to just throw it in with the rest and do it, so we were gracious for that.
Thank you. All right, item 8F, accept the comprehensive annual financial report and single audit report for fiscal year ended June 30, 2019. Christy Clark.
Good evening.
How are you?
Christy Clark, Finance Director. Staff is here tonight to seek the approval of the comprehensive annual financial report and single audit report for the year ended June 30, 2019. And the comprehensive annual financial report was audited by our external audit firm, Burbrick, Trahan & Company. That audit firm did render an unmodified opinion, which is the best type of opinion that the city can receive on its financial report. And that audit opinion is in the financial report on pages 15 through 17, if you'd like to read the entire thing. The audit firm also provided an audit communication letter, and that's provided in your packet under separate cover. And that is where the audit firm discloses any difficulties encountered during the course of the audit, any significant transactions included in the financial report, as well as any significant estimates that were used to prepare the report. And aside from a few estimates that are used on an annual basis to prepare that report, there were no other reportable items. Because the city expended more than $750,000 of federal funds, we were required to undergo a single audit, and that is just a very focused audit looking at our compliance with federal grant agreements as we spend those dollars. Berberick, Trahan and Company also conducted the single audit, and they did render an unmodified opinion, which again is the best type of opinion that we can get. The city's audit committee met on December 9th and received a presentation from the audit firm on the conclusion and outcome of the audits, and it is their recommendation that the council approve both the comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit report for the year ended June 30, 2019. Is there any questions you have?
Counselors?
Christy, I don't have any questions, but I just want to tell you that I did read the auditor's letter and a report, and congratulations. I did not read all 100 pages of all of that. I did enjoy the pictures in the report, but I think
Thank you to Sherry's group for pictures.
There you go. I want to thank you guys. I think we get a lot of questions as counselors is how is the city money being spent? What is, checks and balances? And this report really provides a comprehensive look at what is done and checks and balances, and an auditor that has given us that we're doing things right. And so kudos to you and to the staff for ensuring that the city dollars are being spent the way they should.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the report. It's big.
Yeah.
There's a lot of paper. It's available on our website, or it will be after.
It will be, yes.
After we approve it. It's a lot of reading.
Yes.
And there are definitely parts in here that I just sort of went, okay, yeah, I skimmed over that pretty quickly. But there's great narrative in here about the city and the way the city is structured and the way it's set up and how things are allocated. There's all kinds of information about different funds that we have. If you ever have had questions about city finances, this is a place to start.
Yep.
And I know, Christy, you and your team and all of Melissa's team are always happy to sit down with any of us that have questions, but I'm sure also with any citizen that has questions about what's in this thing. Because this is what you guys do, and you do a fantastic job with it. We really
and it's a
appreciate
very
that.
complex topic, and so sometimes it does just take sitting down and having a conversation about it.
And one of the things I get questions about where the city spends its money, which are good questions. And I refer people sometimes to this stuff because they say, well, this is what gives you the explanation of how things are set up, and it's audited every year, and the audit says we're doing it in accordance with the financial standards that we're supposed to meet. It doesn't mean we're spending it where you want us to spend it, right? That's a whole budget thing that we'll talk about some more. But this gives gives our citizens the assurance that when we decide to spend money and when we allocate it in different ways, it goes where we say it's going to go, and we report it the way we're supposed to report it. And that's because we have fantastic financial staff that make sure these records are kept well and they're kept in accordance with the multiple laws and standards that you all are required to meet. So these reports are really invaluable, and I'm sure for most of us they're super boring, and there's a lot of information in here that we really may not understand the first time through. But for anyone who has questions or concerns or just is curious about how municipal finance work, this is the place to start. And then any questions or comments that people have, I'm sure we can get them answered as well. So,
Actually, if you can make it all the way to the back, toward the end, it's really pretty interesting. Every little detail of trivia about the city that you ever wanted to know, how many library books, how many people go in the community center, miles of striping. I mean, I thought it was really quite interesting.
And if I had to point somebody in the direction of where to focus their time, if they just wanted to get kind of an overview, I would say read the transmittal letter, read the MD&A, the Management's Discussion and Analysis. Those are both narrative in nature, and then visit the statistical section, which is what you're referring to and found in the back of the book.
That's the back is a good way to skip the prose or the narrative. If you just want to get down to the meat and potatoes of it, it's all right there.
Yes. Yeah.
So good for any ex officio members on the city's audit committee.
I like the narrative part better.
Oh, well,
I
you're a
was an
lawyer.
English major. Yeah. Councilors, any further questions or comments for Christie?
Motion to approve city's comprehensive annual financial report and single audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the CAFR. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. That's 2. All right. Item G, authorize staff to apply for the FEMA Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant for Stillwater Creek Basin Master Drainage Plan. Authorize the city manager to sign grant documents and authorize the use of $125,000 of allocated funds from the Stormwater Master Drainage Plan for the city's match. Mr. Carnes.
Good evening, councilors. Monty Carnes, Director of City Engineering. About a year ago, we discussed the need for a master drainage plan in the Stillwater Creek watershed. We told you at that time it'd be about $1.5 million, and we asked for that over a 3-year period of time. You've allocated $1 million to date. We've retained Meshek and Associates at OSU, and I believe one other small contract. So we've committed about $700,000 of the $1 million you've already allocated. As part of this first phase of assessment, Meshek identified a FEMA grant opportunity. FEMA has what they call pre-mitigation grants, where they take some money and try to prevent flooding. And then they have hazard mitigation, where they try to stop it from happening again. Rob's going to talk about that second one here in a minute. The pre-mitigation is broken up into planning and actual projects. We're applying for a planning grant of $500,000. The city's share of that is 25% or $125,000. This would be work that we would do in the next phase of this project, and essentially it helps us with the cost. And so we recommend that we apply for the grant. We have the money already allocated for that. We've got about $300,000 left of what you've previously allocated, and we would take the $125,000 from those allocated funds. Happy to answer any questions.
Sounds like a good grant to get.
Yeah.
Councilors, is there a motion?
Motion to authorize staff to apply for the FEMA PDM grant, authorize the city manager to sign all grant documents, and authorize the use of $125,000 of the allocated funds for the city's match.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that grant application is authorized. Item 8H, award of contract for services for the North Apron project at the Stillwater Regional Airport to EST Inc. in the amount of $275,143. Authorized $221,262 from the AIP 340-00028 2019 project and $53,882 from Phase 3 services from the Delta Taxiway project via a budget amendment, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract documents. CC-19-195. Mr. Carnes.
Yes, you will recall Paul's graphic a moment ago that showed the apron projects in the different colors. This concerns the North Apron project. That's been awarded to Contact. Part of our requirement with the Federal Aviation Commission is that there will be full-time inspection, construction inspection, and also testing of the construction materials. Those are eligible for reimbursement through the grant at a 90-10 basis. These costs are included in the grant, are included in the budget, included in the funds you've already allocated for the North Apron project. And so we're simply asking for permission to retain EST to provide those services. EST is currently providing those services on the runway 0422 reconditioning. We've been pleased with the service that they've provided on that and would like to continue that relationship with this project. In addition, Phase 3 of the Delta Taxiway project was also awarded to Contact as an alternate. And so we're asking that EST go ahead and provide those services on that project as well. Because they are two different projects and two different grants, we have to keep them separated, so that's the reason we're bringing them to you. The Phase 3 is $53,881, and then the North Apron would be $221. That includes some money for OSU to continue to help us with as owners reps. The budget for the North Apron is $258,750, so we're still below the budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilors?
Sounds good.
Is there a motion?
Motion to award the contract for services to EST in the amount of $275,143, authorized $221,262 from the AIP 340-000-028-2019. Will already said all
Yes.
this.
Second.
Ditto Will.
Was that a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to award this contract and the associated budget amendments. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. Thank you, Money. That takes us to item I, authorize staff to apply for hazard mitigation grant program funds to acquire property at 1414 Southwestern Road and authorize the city manager to sign all grant documents. Mr. Hill,
Good
how are you
evening,
tonight?
Mayor, Councilors, how are we?
How are the roads out there?
Good.
Not getting
Very
slick?
good.
We're not
No.
good? Okay.
No, gonna be cold, but not slick. Rob Hill, Emergency Management Director. This evening, we are simply seeking your approval to enter into an agreement with FEMA and the and State Office of Emergency Management for Hazard Mitigation Grant. Like Monty alluded to, Monty is tapping into the pre-disaster mitigation money, which is prior to an event. We are looking for hazard mitigation grant program dollars, which is after an event. And we have a very short window of opportunity to get our application in before the state sends federal dollars back to FEMA. So the purpose of the grant is to acquire severe repetitive loss property, and that's due to flooding. And the property that we're interested in is at 1414 Southwestern, and this property is in the 100-year floodplain. I know this map's not that great, but it does show you the cross-hatched area outlined in purple that the property that we're interested in is in the 100-year floodplain. That floodplain is represented by the dark gray area. This is what the property looked like at the beginning of May when the flood started. This is right south of the daycare on Western and right across from Fountain Square. There used to be 3 homes there. This is the farthest north home. This property, I might add, is actually 7 apartments and 3 bathrooms. This was what the property looked like from May to early June, set behind barricades. This is a short video I want to show you just to give you the idea of the impact of flooding in this area. So one of the things I want to call your attention to real quick, if you'll notice this area right here where my mouse is, the water has gone down approximately 2 feet from the date this picture was taken, right? So on this vehicle that is stalled in the water, it would be up over the hood, and then moving forward, I'll show you what that water level would look like on this home. So pretty significant, right? So as far as FEMA's concerned, this is major damage to the home. It's up over the electrical outlets in the home. It's well within the windows of the property. So this is major damage. This is one other picture that we were able to get from our drone. And again, the water has receded about 2 foot, so from here, but if you will look back, I know it's kind of hard to see, it puts it up over the bed of this pickup and puts it almost over the top of this. And that is just to show you the impact of the water that has affected these 3 homes. So this home is, or was, this is what it is now. The property owner demolished the property, right? The cost to rebuild, mold remediation, having to get the property out of floodplain was just too cost prohibitive. So they just asked for a demolition permit that was granted and demolished the properties. I might point out to you that this property is one of 2 that are what we call severe repetitive loss properties, meaning every time we have an event, these homes flood to some extent, whether it's a small event, they just have a little water in the floor, to major event like what we just saw here. And again, this spring was a 200-year event for a 30-day period. What we want to do is we want to acquire this property and I believe rezone it. Would that be correct? Rezone it so that nobody else can build in this property, and that will actually remove the threat of damage from any, or this will remove that property from that SRL. So if it floods, it doesn't matter, right? Again,
close enough to Babcock to build a baseball field on it?
You know, it's funny you say that, right? Because I was sitting there thinking of that as Carolyn was talking, that there are 2 more properties through here that we might like to do the same thing. But these properties along Western might be more indicative of creating a green space. A green space being an area where we go in and we actually build it to a capacity that we know that it is going to flood. It is going to hold water for us. After the event takes place, we go in, we clean it up, we mow it, we trim the trees, and it goes right back to a green space with park benches and maybe some picnic tables. But we really don't want to do anything with this property just because of the repetitive loss. We don't want to get into that cycle where we're starting to lose money on it as well. There are a couple of moving parts with this FEMA grant that I really need you to understand as we move forward. This is a 75-25 grant, right? We're going to have to front the whole monies first to purchase the property, then we get reimbursed to 75%. That's nothing new. We do that all the time. What I need you to know, though, is moving forward, since this is the first time we've done this, we don't know what the total value of the property is. There are a couple of caveats within FEMA's structure that says that the property owner could go back and require us to pay them for pre-demolition, pre-disaster costs. To give you an idea, the minimum right now that we're looking at based on the county assessor's property tax rolls is $19,800. So if you just round that up to $20,000, we're looking at $5,000 out of pocket to gain this property. Really no big deal. However, if we went back and we looked and we had to assess it at the value with the house on it prior, I need you to know that we could be looking at $184,000. Right, that's what the property was purchased for initially. So, but we will only go fair market value. Now, if we decide that we really want this property, because this property could improve our community rating system, lower our rates by purchasing this property, and provide us dividends on the backside long term, we can pay more. Just know that it's in addition to our 25% that we're already going to be out for the grant, but minus whatever insurance was collected to the homeowner for the damages as a result of the flooding. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's say the dollar amount's $150,000. And let's say the homeowner collected $50,000 worth of damages. We're only looking at $100,000. We're not looking at the $150,000. Okay, and then
that's $25,000 out of the city's coffers with $75,000 grant.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct. Correct. So if you will look at the financial impact funding source in your report, We have identified the city contingency fund to provide the city's 25% match. Again, we do not know how much money we are looking at the present. We won't know that until you give us the approval to be able to pursue the grant. Then we will know all the ins and outs of what the grant details or entails. If the property owner, and quite simply it boils down to this, if the property owner requires more money than what we're willing to bid or pay, we step out, right? No harm, no foul, nobody loses any money. We just cancel the grant and step back. But if they are receptive to the dollar amount, then we just move forward. So it's a no risk investment for us up front. And we do have to come back to you with the total dollar amount to get your approval to move forward, right? So this is not a you have to make that decision yes now or no because we don't know what the dollar amount is. You will hear back from us because we'll have to do another report to get your approval to do the expenditures. Okay. So with that, moving forward, two alternatives. One, to allow us to apply for the grant, or two, to not. And staff's recommendation was to allow us to apply for the hazard mitigation grant dollars and try to acquire this property with that. And the deadline for this is December 22nd. I might also add just one other thing, and I told you there's lots of moving parts, right? Mm-hmm. So MESHEC is working with Monty and Paula in the master drainage plan. They're also hired to help us do our hazard mitigation plan. And these are going to be 2 of 16 properties that you will see that will come out in the hazard mitigation plan that we would like to acquire over time to get them out of the floodplain.
Tell me more about why us having this is better than just leaving it in the hands of the owner and rezoning it to not let them build again on it. I mean, what is the city owning it benefit?
I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, but if we own it, we can do with it what we would like to do. Okay. If we allow it to stay there, we could somebody else could purchase the property from the owner. They could come in and file for a building permit and then have to meet the criteria to build it out of floodplain. So if we can purchase the property, we can ensure what's done with the property down the line. The maintenance, in the financial impact, if we own it, we'll be responsible for having to mow it and having to trim trees. But the cost is minimal when we purchase the property. We'll reduce our CRS, our community rating system number, lower our insurance for the community.
Okay. So we can't just zone it floodplain and not let anybody build on it, right?
Currently, we do not have a zoning district entitled floodplain. That is one of the things that we're looking at, and it will be part of the hazard mitigation plan update. It'll be a recommendation that comes out of that plan. A benefit to having MESHEC and Associates working on both the hazard mitigation plan and the stormwater master drainage plan is that they can identify all of these properties that Rob made a reference to, the multiple properties that we can possibly look to FEMA for grant assistance to purchase and acquire, continuing to give us a greater community rating system rating. With that, they can also identify what uses the city could have for those properties. I anticipate that one of the recommendations out of either of those plans would be, as we accumulate these properties, if we do, then regional detention facilities that can function similar to what the SCS or NRCS flood prevention damage facilities do, that were installed a number of years ago. Helps reduce the opportunity for the flood damage like we have seen here. That's one of the things that would be completely under the city's control. If it were left in the hands of private owner, there would be a question of, do we purposefully rezone their property in a manner that they can no longer use? Why would the city not go ahead and acquire the property if we had the opportunity to?
Okay, so If I heard all that right.
That was a long.
When we get property out of floodplain like this, it actually helps all of our insurance rates because our community rating changes and we get better.
Sort of, yes. We will not be removing the property from the floodplain.
Sure, but we're
removing the structure
Yes.
and then acquiring the property. FEMA will look upon that when we do we recertify our community rating system rating annually, and we have a 5-year permit that we operate under. When that 5-year permit comes around, they will take a look at it and say, there is a severe repetitive loss property, i.e. the structure, that has been removed, 1, has been acquired by the city, 2, and that will give us points or credit toward reducing our ratings, kind of like golf. The lower the score, the better you are. And for every point reduction, CRS rating, short lesson, CRS rating is on a scale of 0 to 10. We are 6?
6 or 7.
We're either 6 or 7. I didn't verify that today. Every point reduction is 5% of your insurance premium. So by 6, we're already being able to provide a 20% reduction to insurance premiums across the community. This goes hand in hand with the fire department's ISO rating. So the better we are, the more real money that there is.
This is why I come to council meetings, because I would not have ever guessed that whether the city has, somebody owns a house that's in a floodplain affects my property insurance rates.
Absolutely it does.
Even though it's not even, my house isn't in the floodplain, so why would it matter? But I get the community, total community risk, basically, that this is based on. So
yes,
that's fantastic information. Thank you for providing that. And then the other thing you mentioned was that if we acquire some of these flood-prone areas, we can then potentially construct some flood mitigation detention areas or keep the areas around them from flooding more in the future.
Yes, or continuing to damage private property, maybe reducing even the damage to public property. Of course, this property in its close proximity to Babcock, we all saw what happened at Babcock. And any ability to provide more area for the water to go without impacting is a greater opportunity for the city.
That's very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, both of you. Councilors, any further questions on this item?
Just out of curiosity, this may be putting the cart before the horse, but you said that there were 16 properties total that we were looking at in kind of the grand scheme of things acquiring?
That we have identified, yes, that flooded this last spring.
Yeah.
But there's 2 severe repetitive loss properties. The
Are
other
any of
ones-
those other properties around this property?
No, the other property is on West Moore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just curious.
But the severe repetitive loss properties on Westmore. The other properties that we would like to purchase, yes, are in this immediate area. There's 2 more properties south of there that we would like to purchase at a later date as well.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this item would just be authorization to apply for the grant funding.
Absolutely.
And then we would talk more later once we get actual prices and all.
Once we know the price from the property owner / past homeowner, once we know what the FEMA processes are, we'll have that dollar amount. We'll put it together in a packet and come back and visit to get your approval for the expenditures.
Excellent. Councilors, is there a motion on this item?
Motion for alternative 1 to authorize staff to apply for the HMGP funds to acquire the property at 1414 Southwestern Road and authorize the city manager to sign all grant documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that motion item's approved. Thanks, Rob. I mean, I like it when I come to these things and I learn stuff. Not that I don't usually, but that one was particularly interesting. All right, item J, approved budget amendment reflecting donations received for the Mary Main Street event. Melissa, you're back.
I'm back with another budget amendment. So, and I'm going to let Councilor Zanotti jump in here where she would like to, but I'm happy to report that she and her colleague, companion, Shannon Williams, have collected to date $4,875 in vendor fees. So the people paid to come and be inside the domes on their respective weekends. And then they have also collected $14,350 in donations. People that sponsored the domes, sponsored different aspects.
Sponsored the dome, sponsored the lights, just gave a general sponsorship. If we had music, we had live music. We have live music on Saturday nights. The different activities, we've done s'mores with firemen, cookies with cops, those types of things.
Right. And you handed me an envilope before we came in here with some more
I did.
donations.
Yes, yeah, close
in
to
them,
700. So our goal was to raise maybe a little bit over $20,000.
Yeah,
I think we'll
you're
make
there
that
now,
go.
I would say.
Yeah.
We did not budget for these items when we set up the initial budget for Mary Main Street. If you'll remember, you approved the event, and we had an initial seed fund of $128,528 that started the event off. So Elaine and Shannon have been able to supplement that fund quite nicely. For us to be able to include these dollars in the actual budget of the event, we need to go ahead and budget for the revenue, and then we're going to increase the expenditure line item of special events. That's kind of where we're collecting the money, and then as the items are spent, we put them in their proper categories for budgeting purposes. So, do you have any questions regarding this one?
Councilors, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the budget amendment reflecting fees and donations received for Mary Main Street event.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that budget amendment is approved.
Thank you.
That takes us to 8K, approve a budget amendment reflecting retention in the general fund of $2.7 million.
So, since you all have your CAFRs, I would like to refer you to page 29 in your CAFR. And there's a line item it's in the general fund column, down, it's like the second to the last line item there. And you'll see assigned fund balance in the general fund to the Stillwater Utilities Authority by resolution, $2.9 million. What that is surplus transfers that came out of the SUA into the general fund. The general fund had overall a positive budget to actual variance. So even though we transferred that money over from the SUA, it really wasn't needed because things turned out better than what we projected. Christy and I are continuing to puzzle how we, $2.9 million. Part of me is very glad that we had a positive variance, but the magnitude of those dollars concerns me. There's got to be a better way for us, and she and I are continuing to work on how do we get that number closer to zero. I would like for it to be zero. But I live in utopia some days with
You can't predict the future yet, Melissa?
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet.
We'll work on that.
But we're going to work on it. So where we are today, the council passed, the trustees passed, actually, the SUA trustees passed back in 2015, I believe, a resolution that we call the general fund transfer policy. It was actually 2016. And in that policy, it talks about how to treat these surplus revenues. Let's see here. If the partial transfers are made during the fiscal year exceed the amount necessary to balance the city's general fund at fiscal year end, the city shall return all excess transferred funds to the SUA upon completion of the annual financial audit. So that's the point in time we are right now. What we're asking you to consider this evening is taking action contingent upon an action that you will take when you get to be the trustees, the SUA meeting, that you would allow a portion of this money to stay in the general fund and be re-allotted to certain projects. The first of those projects is the match on the South Apron project that Paul was just visiting with us about. and that match is $655,555. That's our 10% match on that project, which, no, I was trying to think if that one included the ARF truck or not. It might. Yes? Okay. Secondly, we are asking you, and we had already talked about this back in October before Norman and I went to the auction for the property that abuts the airport. And the funding at that point in time, we wanted to take out of this excess transfer from the SUA. That's $455,000. And I did visit with the title company this afternoon. It looks like we're getting very close to closing on that property. Lastly, we would like to ask you to allot almost $1.6 million of this remaining money to the Capital Improvement Fund. This will allow us to start processing the requests that we have gotten for fiscal year 21. We're going to be working the projects that were funded and to date maybe have not had any action on them. We need to find out what happened with those projects, because my expectation was that action would have been immediate in July and August. Some things are more one time of year, and I certainly understand that, but I want to understand why we asked for dollars that maybe we have not seen any action on. The funds that are there, if they are not going to be deployed in this year, they'll be available for next year. And the beauty of this revolving fund for capital improvement. So the recommendation before you this evening is to approve, contingent upon an action that you take as the trustees of the SUA, the re-allotment, if you will, of these funds to these very specific projects.
Specific not in a specific sense though, because the 1.6 is for capital projects. Are they listed someplace?
They are. They have been turned in by the directors for fiscal year 21. We will be bringing that forward to you in March when we talk about our budget and finalize our budget. If you would like to see that listing before then, which I think you might like to, then we can certainly get that out to you as you start processing kind of the direction that you think we need to go with those projects. And our hope is that, well, my hope is, again, I'm back in utopia, that we might find additional funding. Our needs are great here within the city. Of course, transportation is first and foremost in everybody's mind. But I think we're making great strides in that area. Daily, we are having building issues that need attention, and sometimes they're small, other times they're roofs, and they're not so small. And so those are the things that we're looking at addressing as we move through this process.
So, I mean, to me, it sounds like by the transfer fund policy, we would put it back in the SUA, and then in next year's budget, we would say, well, we've got to have $655 million or $655,000 for this airport grant fund. So,
but
it's sort of
the way things, when you enter into an agreement or when you enter into a contract or you approve an amendment just like you did, we operate under the philosophy that we have those funds available at that point in time. And so that's the necessity to accelerate this.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think I understand that, because basically what we're doing is just keeping it in there instead of trying to move it back and move it back the other way.
I wasn't following your logic.
Yeah.
That is correct. Normally we would move that back, and if you'll see, we're only asking for $2.7 million out of what the CAFR refers or delineates as 2.9, almost 2.91. So we will move the balance, about $200,000, back to the SUA.
Mayor, if I may, I know that Melissa's very concerned about why we have this balance. I can tell you a great deal of it, and I don't think this is any secret to anybody. There's a very low unemployment rate here in Stillwater and across the state of Oklahoma, and a vast majority of that would be from unfilled positions. We have a couple of three or four engineering positions that we simply haven't been able to get filled.
The PD has
PD has
several.
they've just hired 5 or 6 people, but those positions have been open for quite a while.
We also had a positive variance on use tax and sales tax. So again, Christy and I have been pondering this. If we were to go in and increase that budget, we really should have decreased it. The more I've thought about this, I think the opposite action might have been to decrease the transfer instead of increasing the expenditure at that point. Yeah. So those are the kind of pretty high level, I think, things that she and I are working through as we're cleaning and we're getting a lot more transparent with the numbers. We're starting to deal with how do we really effectively process this data and make it really reflect where we are as a city.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about the transfers and that sort of thing every once in a while. For those of you who aren't staff, which is like 2 of you maybe, when we set this budget, we decide how much we think we're going to make off sales tax and then how much we're going to spend. Mm-hmm. And we say, well, we'll take excess funding out of the utilities authority, which is basically excess money we make off of selling electricity, and we transfer it over. And at the beginning of the budget cycle, we say we're going to need, I can't remember what it was last year, 16 million?
I don't remember.
Something like that. We said, this is what we think we're going to need from the transfer to balance the budget. And what this 2.9 left over means that we made more from our sales tax or spent less and didn't need quite so much of the money transferred over.
And we came to you in October of 2018. We asked for a raise for our general staff. Mm-hmm. Well, when we got around to implementing that raise in December and then started to see the numbers come through, these vacancies made up that difference. So $500,000 of this is really that transfer that you authorized out of the SUA to cover those raises that were not needed at that point in time. So
because we had so many vacant positions that the vacancies basically covered the raises for everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fiscally sounds like a great thing, but from a work standpoint, for the people who are working at the city that have that many vacant positions of people who should be there helping, that's problematic.
It's not a good thing, and we are starting to, as Norman said, we're being able to hire. And especially in the finance area, Christy and I were commenting the other day that we're finally starting to see the benefits of being fully staffed. We can have people who are laser focused on certain topics and issues and getting much better data analysis going on and reports generated. And I think you all have seen some of that as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, councilors, any further questions on this item specifically, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve budget amendments for specific purposes outlined in this report, pending action by the SUA trustees later this evening to approve resolution SUA 2019-5, authorizing the retention of surplus transfer by the general fund.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this budget amendment. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the item's approved. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. That takes us down to item 9. That was quite a bit of general orders under item 8. Just so you all recall, we moved a lot of this stuff probably would have been on consent a few months back, and things like a couple $100 at the library we normally would do on consent, but we've tried to move more of this money discussion to general orders because we feel like it's important that people sort of see that more clearly and make sure they see where the dollars are going back and forth. So thanks for sticking in there. Item 9, resolutions. Resolution CC-2019-27, a resolution notifying the public of the compiling and publishing of the Code Supplement Number 7 to the Code of the City of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Mr. Dorman, tell us about the Code Supplement.
Basically, the code is current as of tonight, if you approve this resolution. We have published all ordinances passed by the City Council through tonight. and those are published, and they're available in the codified form as opposed to the new ordinance service. So I can't remember the last time we were actually current, so I'm very pleased to tell you that we are at this point.
So for people who don't have any idea how this works, and I worked in a law library in law school, so I got to learn this like firsthand, but we've got a book of codes that actually is published in a book form, and then as we make new ordinances, just paper slip copies of that stuff ends up getting stuck at the back of the book.
Correct.
Basically, until we get to the point where we say, well, we've got enough of this new stuff that we're actually going to publish a new book that includes everything in it. Right? I mean, that's generally what we're doing here is we're saying,
And
okay,
that's what
it's time
we have
to publish
done.
a new book.
Yes. And so everything that you would want to know in the code is where it's supposed to be at this point.
Yep.
And so until you pass some more substantive ordinances, we won't make any more adjustments to that.
All right. Is there further question, comment, or a motion on this resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC-2019-27.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that resolution is adopted. Item 9B, Resolution CC-2019-28, a resolution adopting a purchasing policy for the City of Stillwater and its trusts. Mr. Dorman, this is a fun one. It's a fun one to get done, right?
This hasn't been a long time coming. As you know, we've been working on the purchasing manual for some time. We have a working group that consists of Melissa and her staff, Christy in the finance department, and attorneys from my office. And we've been working through about an 80-page purchasing manual for a while now, trying to figure out the best way to do this. And in this process, we kind of figured out not too long ago that really a lot of the stuff that we're putting in the book is already codified as state statute, city ordinances, things like that. And that really there were two things that we needed. One was that we needed specific policy guidance from the city council as to the items that the state law didn't cover or your ordinances didn't cover. And secondly, we needed for the staff to actually sit down and process set up their processes by themselves, because they really are the ones who work through the various forms and things like that. And so when we kind of made this discovery, we decided to come forward to you and ask you to adopt a general policy that kind of sets the parameters under which the policy or the processes that the city manager is responsible for will be set up. And so that's what we're asking you to do tonight, is to establish these policies. I think I mentioned in there there's actually two things. One is to establish the guidelines, and the other thing is where you're filling in some gaps, because there are some things in the state law that are not covered, and they are recurring issues that we run into, such as ties in bidding or local preferences, things like that. And so we did want to bring those forward in the policies here, and so that's what you're seeing. So in effect, what we've done, at least to a certain extent, is taken about an 80-page document and brought it down to about 3 pages. And so tonight we're asking you to adopt this policy so we can move forward with the second step, which will be the establishment of the actual formal processes that can be dealt with internally.
Mm-hmm. Do you, I mean, the items in here that talk about purchases over $50,000 have to be approved by the council. That's all current policy.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing particularly new here, other than, I guess, probably writing down the way it's been done,
Yes.
but not really codified before this, right?
Well, the $50,000 threshold is actually established in state law.
Sure.
Also established in your city charter. And so that's kind of the magic number, and not just with competitive bidding, but also with the Trust Act, which is actually broader in its scope than the Competitive Bidding Act. But there's lots of things there's things, like I said, that are not covered, and we want to be able to address those in the policy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have plugged those in as well.
Yeah. But in terms of substantive changes to the way we've done policy or that we've done purchasing, there's not much here that would be a substantive change.
No, sir. This is just basically putting it in writing where we need to.
Yep. Well, I think it's a good thing in terms of getting this stuff on paper so that we can all see it and follow. You know, every time we go through it, we can say, okay, well, this is how we do it according to item 1 or item 2B or whatever it is. We don't have to worry about trying to figure out how we did it the last time. And so I think it's a good thing to have sort of those overviews and outlines, and a good thing to help get started on getting all the process in place as well.
Thank you.
Councilors, any questions or comments about this?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC 2019-28.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the purchasing policy resolution is adopted. Item 9C, a resolution CC-2019-29, a resolution amending the terms and conditions of service for municipal utilities. Dana Maddox.
Utility and Billing Services Director, and we are requesting an update to our terms and conditions. This is the document that we use to base our policies and procedures on when setting up new utility accounts, collecting money in the field for our credit and collections division. It's been quite a while since we've updated this, and we have been working very closely with legal and the city manager's office to get those updates to that document. So just a couple to just highlight a couple of the changes that we're requesting to update the anti-discrimination policy based on some a policy that you guys had adopted not too long ago. Also, we've had a lot of department changes and title changes, and so we're updating those, updating our medical alert process, which used to be known as our life support. So in notifying those customers that's on life support and getting them to renew that every year, which we haven't done, just so we have a current list. So when there is a power outage, that list is available to fire and emergency management to know, excuse me, or people that's on that list to try to get their service back on as quickly as possible. Also, we are updating that we don't want our staff taking cash in the field anymore, so we're removing that. They'll still take check and money order. They can call in over the phone during business hours and make a credit card payment with us to keep their utilities on. So we are knocking on those doors, trying to collect that money one more time before we turn people's power off. And then a chapter to establish for our customers when handling inquiries. So an actual process that's in writing if they have a concern or an issue, how they would handle that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilors?
One question, Dana. Do you always have to come in person to start an account, or by phone? There is
You can do it by phone. If you've had a previous account with us and you have signed our contract, then we'll validate some security information, so your driver's license, sometimes the last four of your social, a date of birth. We'll ask for a password that you've given us. If you can identify those things, then we'll start that over the phone with you. For our customers that don't live here, we can do a couple of options. We can give them temporary service until they can get here, so we'll go ahead and fax them a form that's only going to be for a couple of weeks. Or they can take our form and have it notarized and then send that back to us, and we'll set up service for them.
So there's no online application?
There is not an online application at this time.
Thank you.
Just point of clarification that hopefully the press that's here might. One of the problems that we run into from time to time is that if there is a relationship in a household and not everyone is on the account, and one person calls for changes in the account, they get very upset because they have been married for so long or in a relationship for so long, or someone's passed and they're trying to make changes. Because of those red flag laws, people have to come and do some of that in person if they do not contact us ahead of time and set up those rules so that we can talk to them over the phone. As you're aware, there's cyber thieves everywhere, and this is unfortunately, procedure that we have to take to protect customers' information. So we'd encourage people to check and see if they have the ability to make changes to their utility accounts in Stillwater over the phone. And if not, we'll fix you up.
And we're trying to protect our customers, and unfortunately, we never know if someone's going through a divorce and now they're trying to gather information to take to court if the bills aren't getting paid against the other person. So,
Councilors, any further questions or comments on this resolution? Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2019-29.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, resolution 2019-29 is adopted. Thank you, Dana. Item 10, ordinances on first read. We have ordinance 3446, an ordinance rezoning property addressed as 906 East Swim Avenue from RT two-family residential district to RSS small lot single-family residential district. This is a rezoning ordinance from an item we had on a prior agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to advance to second reading ordinance number 3446.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt, to advance ordinance 3446 to second reading. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is advanced to second reading. That takes us down to reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report tonight, sir.
Mr. Dorman, or Mr. McNichol? Mr.
Two
Dorman, you want
items.
to try again, just in case? Sorry.
2 items, sir. That's fine. One, I'm pleased to report our electric utility crews were recently recognized by the Stillwater resident for a quick response. The installation of a new streetlight at 8th and Duncan after a request was made to make this intersection safer. Wade, Todd, Darrow, Ron, Cole, and Landon, all of our SEU are great examples of the city's standards of excellence, and we try to live up to those every day. The next item is you received a letter Friday. It was hand-delivered from the McCullum family, and they are asking for a 30-day extension to the abatement and demolition orders on 4 properties. The reason for that is that there have been asbestos surveys done in those buildings, and they require abatement. They have, and we do know this, they've capped the sewers, they have the permits, they have contracts with Midwest Wrecking. But they need to get the asbestos out, and as you all are aware, that takes time. And sometimes those companies are pretty busy. So they've asked for a 30-day extension. We can't get that on the agenda until January 6th, I believe. And who knows, they may be done by that point. But just so you'll know why those aren't coming down by January 2nd.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Councilor Zanotti.
Yes. Heads up, there is a vote for City Council elections for Seat 3 that will be held on Tuesday, February 11th. If you haven't registered to vote, now is a good time to do that.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
Yes. The city recently surveyed residents on the recycling program through Flashvote, and the results are now live. That is really a fun thing. It just comes right back. It's really quick, and it's so simple. The results show that recycling is important, and residents are willing to work with the city to make sure this service is sustainable. Don't miss the next survey. Sign up in a few minutes at flashvote.com. Stillwater, okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilor Wedlake?
Yes, sir. December 21st is your last day to take advantage of free carriage rides downtown. The service runs from 3 to 9 p.m. at Block 34. Stop by Mary Main Street and shop local while you're there. And you can get more information on Mary Main Street at the website, which is marymainstswo.org. Yes.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes. The Complete Count Committee is working with the League of Women Voters to educate the public about the 2020 census. We'd like to thank them for their help and urge Stillwater to complete the census next April.
Absolutely. I'll remind you that if you live outside the Stillwater city limits, you should consider signing a rural service fire contract. And those come up at the end of the year here, so you can find an application at stillwater.org or call the Stillwater Fire Department for more information. All right, we will move on to item 13, appointments. We have 2 items left under 13. Item A is a planning commission seat. We have 1 vacant seat on the planning commission. The term to fulfill an expiring term, the term that will expire in July of 2020. So this seat would be back up in July of 2020. We have 3 applications on file: Brett Allred, Charles Harper, and James Sines. I would at this point like to nominate Brett Allred for that seat on the planning commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, Brett Allred is now appointed to that seat on the Planning Commission. Thank you for all 3 of you for your willingness to serve. There is an expiring seat on the Stillwater Medical Center Board. Dan Duncan currently holds a seat. There's no other applications on file, and Mr. Duncan has indicated a willingness to continue to serve another 3-year term. So I will nominate Dan Duncan to continue his service on the Stillwater Medical Center Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, Mr. Duncan will be appointed to a new 3-year term. Thank you for your service on the Medical Center Board. We've already appointed Mabry to the Citizens Recycling Task Force, so that takes us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the City Council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the City Council meeting is now adjourned. At this time, what's next? Utilities? SUA. Sorry. Got my stuff out of order. This time I will call to order the December 16, 2019 meeting of the Stillwater Utilities Authority. On the consent docket, we have regular meeting minutes from November 18th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Takes us down to item 5 under general orders. We have the Rural Water Advisory Board semi-annual report. Mr. Sitton is here to give us an update on how the Rural Water Advisory Board is going. How are you tonight, sir?
Fine. Thank you. And I want to again thank the board for SUA board for funding the 2040 plan, because that has helped with water pressure, water quality within the rural water corp district, and I'm sure all of our active members much appreciate that. I don't know if you all have had time to read the report. Me as a volunteer have 24/7 to write these, so it's not like a report that I have to put out 8 to 5. But this is for the first half of the year. During the second part of the year, of course, it will be reported on what occurs, which we have new board members changing in and out. I do have a few systems reports that I enjoy doing because I am an accountant, so I enjoy numbers. And it probably has overwhelmed you with the different attachments that I attach on the bottom. As water's flushed, water loss and stuff like that. And the reason why we generate these reports is I'm the second chairman of the Rural Water Advisory Board. The previous one had generated some of these because these are the reports that a rural water system would use to find out how they're doing as to water losses and if they are within state requirements and or state other systems. And in previous years, you all have done very, very well. On the second page, we noted, and which we worked with the Water Board in September of 2017, where we saw very large water losses. But then we had 3 previous months before that, if we look under column 3 on 2017 losses, where we had like the system was making water, and then we had our real losses down below. And so thus they were able to find what the problem was, and it got corrected. So thus in 2018, then our water losses came within line of how they should be. So I think that our reports do generate good information, but some of that information stopped in 2018, where we don't get the number of hydrants flushed, and we don't get in 2019, then we were stopped being provided the billed gallons and stuff like that. So I can't continue to do these reports because those reports have not been reported to me. I think another report that is very important is our active customers as to new customers. So this is attachment number 2, and it generates our customer turnover rate, which I think that if this is a very important report as to hiring your men, as to maintaining your systems. And so thus you can see in 2018, in the months of May, June, and July, or June, then we have turnover rates there. Well, that's where people are moving in, moving out. So the city should know that you are going to have more people around to maintain or help maintain the system as to turn-offs and turn-ons. That's some of the reports that we would generate within our own Rural Water Corp. So then that way we'd make sure that we were manned. And then our third attachment is water requests, and you can see where some of the water requests in 2019 come up in January and in February, and they were all done and installed in February. And then some of the others were being caught up in March of being installed. So not all of our requests can be handled in a timely fashion because a builder may come in and request, but he may not need the meter till months later. So it's just to show how our requests are installed goes about. The attachment number 4 is one that is generated by the city and with their numbers. On column 0, or I guess it would be O, is metered consumption. That's kind of a false misnomer there because as we read all the way down, that one has plus hidden oaks. So we can't really generate any charts from those numbers. And that was from where I was reporting and where I wasn't being given the correct numbers to report on my reports because hidden oaks are not within our territory. So hopefully if I bring them to light now, then they can be passed on down to be corrected and we can get these reports generated. Attachment number 5 is the one that was generated back in July 2011, whenever the Corp sold out to the city, and these are all the stuff that was in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 to be completed by the city. And it is real nice reading that each one of you all can probably read and help put you to sleep at night, knowing which ones has been completed and which ones hasn't. And as we go all the way down to the very bottom one, very back page, C on Water 2040 plan, you know, it is an upgrading of your whole plan. We all much appreciate that. Is there any questions as to the report?
Councilors?
I had a question on your bold note in item 3 in the report. Robert, we recommend that the SUA look into lifting the moratorium on 1 water meter per parcel of land.
Yes. On that right there, the SUA board had put requirements on us back in 2011 because of the service area had fallen down below the certain water pressure. And so everybody that was developing out there could not subdivide. So if you had 160 acres, then you were only allowed 1 meter. And so until the 2040 plan comes in and upgrades that and tests are being done, then we are still under this regime. And from what I hear from the reports, and you all might know better than this, if that is ready to go forward to allow certain lots to be opened up. And so we just recommend that the SUA look about lifting that, because they should know more of the requirements of how Bill Millis brings forth if that's ready to be lifted or not. But we as a board would recommend that you all look a little closer and get that done. We have builders out there that are ready to buy or ready to build, ready to subdivide and expand our city on this water system, but those reports need to be generated first before you all can lift those.
Thank you for that explanation.
This is more of a question for Norman, but do we know why we're not providing some of this data?
I do not.
Okay.
I have a huge note here in the front of my notebook. Find out why.
These are the reports that I was receiving in 2018, and it was from Brad Stewart. And then we have an internal report, which is the water monthly instead of monthly report, and that would have been the water flushed. So then that way we could report that on the flushings of the systems and stuff like that. And they just stopped.
Robert, I'll find out and get with you, because
well,
I have no idea why the change is made. We did make some organizational changes where we've got a water quality unit now that's trying to keep up with the flushing and and improve the quality of water in the system, and then the engineering system. And I don't know whether something got lost.
I think that you all are short of people.
We are.
And I would more or less love to continue generating the reports of what we're doing. As I said, I'm just truly a volunteer, but the one report, which is the attachment number 4, is generated by you all. This was generated by your all staff. You know, you all had to pay for it. All my numbers do the very same thing, and you're getting my reports for free. So I'm just saying, you can save some money and save some engineers some pulling hair out on doing that if you just supply us those other numbers.
I'll find out and get with you.
And we'd have the very same thing done. I had mentioned it to different people before, and just wouldn't continue to supply them. Any other questions?
I think we're good. We appreciate the report. Appreciate the work that you do with the Rural Water Board.
We thank you for Bill Millis and his water staff and all the ones that are working there, engineering the 2040 plan and continuing to give us quality water. We all appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It takes us to item 6A, Resolution SUA 19-3, a resolution adopting a purchasing policy for the City of Stillwater and its trusts. This would be the same resolution we adopted at the City Council meeting as applied to the trust. Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA 19-3.
Second.
Purchasing policy.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, resolution 19-3 is adopted. Resolution under item B, resolution SUA 19-4 is the resolution amending the terms and conditions of service for the municipal utilities, which is the same set of policies we looked at under the City Council meeting. Is there a motion on this resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA 19-4.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt this resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, resolution is adopted. Item C, resolution 19-5, SUA-19-5, a resolution authorizing the City of Stillwater's general fund to retain the sum of $2.7 million transferred from the Stillwater Utilities Authority to be appropriated for specific projects. This is also an item we've discussed tonight. Is there any further discussion or a motion on this item?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA 19-5.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, that item is adopted. Are there any reports from officers and boards? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, sorry. There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, Stillwater Utilities Authority is now adjourned. At this time, I will call to order the December 16, 2019 meeting of the Stillwater Economic Development Authority. On item 2, under the consent docket, we have approval of regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Under general orders, we have another policy to discuss tonight. This is policy night. We should have had a party or something. Item 5A, presentation of the Economic Development Incentive Policy. Melissa Reams.
Good evening again, trustees. We are bringing before you this evening a draft of our proposed incentive policy for the city of Stillwater. Some of the reasoning behind this, and of course, Councilor Jaloski, I think you provided the kickstart for us on this one. We were looking for a structured approach as we continue to have new business come to town, and they are looking for assistance in starting that business. So we're looking for a structured approach. We're looking for consistency, but we're also wanting a policy that provides flexibility where needed, and defines thresholds for these incentive agreements, length of the agreement, level of incentive, and level of investment by the developer. Some of the goals that we hope that this draft policy will achieve are expand the tax base, increase full-time employment, and I was really interested to hear that the dispensary, the owner of the dispensary, was talking about jobs for people here in our community. Encourage private investment, business retention and recruitment, targeted geographic areas, and I had a long discussion today with one of my colleagues about these targeted geographic areas and why would we want to incentivize certain places. And they're just, there are areas of town that have potential for development, but for whatever reason nobody's looking there to develop. So you try and incentivize those folks to go look at that area of town. This policy is not really intended, it does provide you some flexibility, but it's really not intended for those extraordinary projects, and those do come along every once in a while. Some of the available incentives that we have used in the past and are currently looking at are TIF districts. We have 3 currently on the books. 2 of them are sales tax only TIF districts. That would be the one that we refer to as the Academy TIF, the one out on North Perkins, and the West TIF out towards the Walmart on 6th Street. Then we have our Downtown Campus Link TIF, which is a sales tax plus ad valorem tax TIF. So any of the growth within this ad valorem district, this TIF district, is going to be carved out and set aside to fund incentives within that district. We do what I call sales tax and arrears agreements. We have done those in the past and certainly could look at those again in the future, where we enter into an agreement with a business owner to rebate new to our area sales tax generated by that business. So they share in part of that sales tax generation. And fee waivers and reductions. We at times will waive permits and impact fees and provide the engineering assistance to go along with that. It also, I really like this policy because at the outset it communicates to the development community, to the business owners, what the mindset is here in Stillwater when it comes to business assistance and incentives. And one of the ways we do that is through the application process and the documentation that we require. And so you can see here the list is fairly comprehensive. We want to know all about your business plan, and hopefully they're businesses who have a great chance of success. Everybody likes to think their business will succeed, and the reality of that doesn't always play out. We've developed an evaluation matrix, so we assign numbers to different things. One of those being the revenue benefit to the city. We've talked about this in a lot of different areas, and it's return on investment. If we're going to invest some of our precious sales tax dollars and our precious ad valorem dollars, we want to know that we're going to get a return on that investment. Quality jobs. We want not only the sales tax dollars, but the people who spend the money. We want them to live here in Stillwater. And so even though there may not be that direct linkage with quality jobs, it's what is called induced growth. And by getting the people here, you're going to see those other areas grow just by having those good quality jobs here. A level of private investment. We're going to want to know, as we're evaluating your project, exactly how much skin do you have in the game, and their financial capacity. We want to make sure that these business opportunities have a good potential for success. We want you around. And I love this one. We've been talking about this in the investment area for quite a while, and I sit on the board of trustees for our pension plan, Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund. And we've been talking about ESG, and that's what this last bullet refers to. We're looking for those good corporate citizens who are concerned about our environment. They're concerned about the social aspects of what they do, and they have an ethical basis to their operation. So that record of that good corporate citizenship, and that's a key component. Performance standards. When you enter into a development agreement with us, you expect something from us, but we will also expect something from you in return. And so we will lay out timetables. We will lay out descriptions of the project. And we will also make sure that you understand if you don't meet your deliverables, that we will potentially take back what we've already advanced you in incentive dollars. And that's what the clawback provisions all are for. And that there will be reporting requirements. So that's kind of the draft policy in a nutshell. Do you all have any questions regarding this?
Trustees, questions or comments from Melissa?
I'm just really excited to see this come out. I think as we work on process, this is one process that's so valuable to us as we work with the development community and we work with potential businesses that want to come to our town. I think this not only says to them that we're open for business, but that we have a clear process that they'll be able to understand. It allows us to, I think, apply it more balanced, as opposed to, it can be really exciting sometimes when new business or an opportunity comes up, and this allows us to kind of temper that and make sure that we're checking all the boxes and that it's a good thing, not only for the developer, but also for us. I just really like the idea of having a way to evaluate how we lay out our incentives. I really appreciate the work that you guys have done on it.
We totally agree with you. We want to take the emotion out of the decision and let the facts drive what we're doing. Absolutely.
Mayor, if I may,
yes, sir.
One of the things that we debated heavily was standards for low or moderate income housing. And that's a difficult issue. But one thing that is almost universal in everyone's definition is the percentage of income that should go towards housing. And that's the reason we landed with the Oklahoma Housing Group's formula. The income seems high for other numbers that we have seen reported, but I believe that is a entire family income, which makes the possible house that they would qualify for a little more expensive than what we first envisioned.
Mm-hmm. And by using the OFA standard, we're tying this policy back to the Home Buyers Assistance Program. I believe we talked about that maybe at the last council meeting. That same standard ties to that as well. And so we get that consistency across these two documents.
Yeah, and I joked earlier about being policy night, and adopting these new policies, which I sort of see as double-edged swords, right? I mean, we want predictable outcomes. We want people who come into the city to understand what they're going to be asked for, what they're going to be required to do, and we want them to understand that from the beginning and not kind of have to guess. But we also don't want bureaucracy making the decisions, right? I mean, we want to have, and one of the things I like about this policy is that it also talks about discretion and the fact that economic development is a bit more of an art than it is a science. Well, I think we all know, and sitting in these chairs the last few years, that trying to make these deals or to get people to come or to build something, it doesn't always just come down to a matrix. It's great to have that, and it's great to measure it, but we have that discretion here, and I think that's something that we shoot for with all of our policies, with the stuff that we've talked about tonight and the other areas of what we do for the city. We want that laid out, but we also want to make sure people can make decisions that need to be made, and people have some leeway when it comes to doing that. So that's good. I probably just repeated half of what you said.
I agree with you. I think that flexibility is so very important. We all know, there's sometimes something comes across to us that just is very important for the community to try to make work, maybe in areas where it's really complicated to make those things work, and we as a city need to help make those happen. I like that we have the flexibility to do that. I also just like that we're able to kind of lay some of the facts and information out to help us, understand just how exciting that opportunity might be. So I think it's a great jumping off point, and I think it allows us to be more transparent to folks that we will be working with through the economic development program.
Yep, absolutely. Further comments or questions on this policy?
And on any policy, as you were saying, Mayor, this is why we live in Stillwater. This is a great size of city to be able to know who you have to talk to and make some decisions that might look out of the print.
Melissa, is this ready to adopt as a policy?
Yes, unless that you have any changes that need to be proposed and made.
Is this something? I would say how will you review how it's working?
Well, the first thing would be to get an actual case to apply this to. And we've had a little bit of experience with our TIF number 3, and I think this will help shore up some of the gaps that we saw there. Definitely we're going to track it as we go, and this is an iterative document. If it needs to be amended, we will be back to you with those amendments, those proposed amendments, because until you really get in there and apply something to it, it's hard to know what you missed.
Yeah, I would love to hear from you all at some point when you feel like it's been in practice for a little while, how it's working.
And definitely any of the projects that come and go through this process are going to wind up in front of you all. So you'll definitely hear about it then.
I have good reason to believe that you'll see a low-income housing project soon, right after the first of the year, that comes in on this application.
Wonderful.
I do have one potential edit, Melissa, on the evaluation matrix itself, which is page 8.
Got it.
The footnote about staff recommended incentive will be based on the total points awarded, with an example that if you ask for $1 million and you get 75 out of 100 points, then we'll recommend 750,000. It sounds a little too formulaic to me, and I don't know if we want to tie staff to having to make that sort of. I guess it's sort of staff recommendation, so
probably
maybe it makes sense. But that was one part where I was sort of like, well, I don't want necessarily people to feel like, losing 1 point here is tied to a specific dollar amount of what they might be able to.
So you think just delete that?
Or maybe just to soften it a little bit to say that the percentage of points awarded will affect or, may affect, staff recommendation on funding.
Right, because it
Just
could
so
be
it's-
that you're as you're stacking incentives,
Yeah.
you could come up with a more organic number than
Yeah.
just that
Yeah,
percentage.
and it could be high, right? I mean, you could get 100 points on here, and we may say, well, you actually don't need all of that you asked for because you've got this other incentive that came in or something like that. So,
So
so
something
just so there's
along-
not quite so much rigidity to the recommendation.
Percentage of points awarded will affect dollars awarded, something
Or
along those lines.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
recommendation.
I like that.
Any other proposed edits, trustees? Is there a motion to adopt the policy with that edit?
Might be a good idea to actually do a resolution adopting it
Okay.
so that it's more formal. Do you want to make the change and then bring it back to the
You can
meeting
bring
in
that back on
January?
the
That's
6th.
fine.
Okay, yeah,
Yep, that makes sense.
by resolution.
Thanks for putting this together. I know that you guys have been working on this for a while as well.
It's been a group effort, I will tell you. The CMO office and we've all worked very closely on this.
And I know some of these are things that we've sat up here before and said, hey, we'd really like to see a policy that addresses these things. And then you guys have to go back and try to guess
Right.
what we were thinking when we said we wanted to see that. You know, it's great to have the back and forth and to discuss it. And so we appreciate the work.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 6A, Resolution SEDA-19-3, a resolution adopting a purchasing policy for the city of Stillwater and its trust. This is the same purchasing policy we discussed previously. Is there a motion?
Yes, motion to adopt SEDA Resolution 19-3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that resolution is adopted. That takes us to item 7A, appointments to the Tourism Advisory Committee. We have already appointed trustee Zanatti as the chair of this committee, and I know she had asked for some time to go through some of these applications and get some more folks. Trustee Zanatti, do you have
Sure.
some comments or recommendations?
Well, to remind everybody, this committee already has appointed a representative of the SEDA Board of Trustees, which is myself, a representative of that'd be the city manager, a representative from Oklahoma State University, which is Joe Weaver, a representative from Visit Stillwater, which is Chris Norris, and then we have 3 at-large, and one of the 3 at-large needs to have experience in the Stillwater hotel motel industry from the applications. And so I would like to nominate Jay Martin, who is in the local hotel business here in Stillwater. I'd also like to nominate Sally Turner, who is the event manager for the Land Run 100 event that happens annually here in Stillwater. And then I'd also like to nominate Christine Waits, who has a background in marketing, image management, and was helped co-found the Daily Bread, Our Daily Bread. I think she'd bring great experience as well. So those are the 3 nominations I have for this committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt these 3 individuals to appoint these 3 individuals to the Tourism Advisory Committee. Please vote. Uh-oh. We know we got at least 3 yeses. Here we go. We have a motion and a second to appoint. Please vote. And with a vote of 5-0, those 3 folks are appointed to the Tourism Advisory Committee. We appreciate, Elaine, your leadership on that and the service of those individuals. I'm sure it'll be a good time.
Absolutely.
All right, that takes us to reports from officers and boards. Anyone have a report on this item? I don't see anybody. So let's go down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the SEDA meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we're now adjourned. Thank you all for being here.